A Roman coin rests in the soil of the Americas, far from any empire. These discoveries are called out-of-place artifacts, and each one is a quiet rebellion against the history books. This video presents 20 of these objects, and by the end, you will possess a completely different framework for understanding our ancient past. We will examine how a Viking coin reached Maine centuries before Columbus, and why traces of American plants were found in Egyptian tombs. What story do these scattered pieces tell when we finally connect them? These objects are more than just misplaced trinkets. The formal term for them is an out-of-place artifact, often shortened to OOP art. It describes a discovery that shatters our expectations of time and place. Imagine a single artifact that seems to belong to a different era, a different continent, or even a different level of technological understanding than the culture that supposedly left it behind. It is a piece of evidence that does not fit the established narrative. For historians and archaeologists, these are the ultimate riddles. An out-of-place artifact is not simply an ancient Roman coin found in Britain that makes perfect sense given the empire's reach. It is a Roman coin found beneath a centuries-old oak tree in the heart of North America, a place the Romans were never supposed to have seen. The profound mystery lies in the anachronism, the jarring sense that this object is where it should not and could not possibly be based on everything we think we know. This creates a fascinating intellectual conflict. On one side, some researchers see these objects as potential keys to forgotten chapters of human history, hints of ancient global explorers or lost knowledge. On the other, many scholars meticulously search for more conventional explanations, such as accidental mixing of archaeological layers, modern hoaxes, or simple misidentification of the object itself. This tension between mystery and methodology is the very heart of the search. To truly grasp what an out-of-place artifact represents, we need to hold one in our mind's eye. And there is perhaps no clearer, more debated example to start with than a small, worn piece of silver known as the Maine penny. That small, worn piece of silver from the opening is real, and its story is where our list truly begins. In 1957, an amateur archaeologist was carefully sifting through soil at a site in Maine, a location known to be an ancient seasonal settlement for the Wabanaki people. His trowel turned up something utterly unexpected, a tiny silver coin no larger than a fingernail. Experts would later identify it with certainty. It was a Norse penny, minted in Norway between the years 1065 and 1080. This was not a modern replica or a misidentified token. It was genuine medieval currency, over 400 years older than the first voyage of Christopher Columbus. The context made it even more startling. The coin was found within a layer of material dated to the 12th century, a time when Norse sagas spoke of distant lands to the west, but long before any European power claimed knowledge of the American mainland. So how did a coin from a Norwegian king's mint end up buried at a Native American campsite in Maine? The most direct explanation points to the Vikings. We know they established a foothold at El Ants Ox Meadows in Newfoundland around the year 1000. This coin, minted just a few decades later, could have traveled with them on a voyage southward down the coast. Perhaps it was carried by a Norse explorer as a simple piece of personal wealth, then lost or traded during an encounter with the indigenous peoples of the region. The Wabanaki, skilled traders connected to vast networks, could have acquired it through exchanges that stretched northward, passing from hand to hand over generations until it finally came to rest in the soil of Maine. This single artifact does not prove a permanent Viking colony so far south, but it whispers of something perhaps equally revolutionary: sporadic contact. It suggests that goods, and the stories that traveled with them, could move across the Atlantic world long before the age of official exploration. The Maine penny stands as a quiet, physical challenge to the old textbook timeline, a metallic seed from which the idea of an interconnected ancient world begins to grow. If a thread of trade could stretch from Scandinavia to the forests of Maine, what other oceans might have been crossed? But the Atlantic was not the only highway for these whispers of the past. Across the world, another mystery was being unearthed from the resting places of ancient Chinese nobility. Within tombs dating to the Shang and Zhou dynasties, archaeologists discovered exquisite jade artifacts, objects of profound ritual importance. Yet when experts analyzed the stone, they found its chemical fingerprint did not match known local sources in Asia. Instead, the signature pointed thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean to the jade mines controlled by the Olmec civilization in what is now Mexico. This was not a case of a single lost trinket, but a pattern of specialized material appearing where it simply should not be. The Olmec, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, flourished from around 1500 to 400 years before the Common Era, a timeline that runs parallel to the very dynasties in China that prized this jade. The sheer distance is staggering, an expanse of open ocean that seems an impossible barrier for ancient peoples. But the ocean is not a blank wall, it is a dynamic system of highways made of water. Researchers note that specific Pacific currents, like the Kuroshio Current, could have carried vessels from Asia toward the Americas. The return journey, while more challenging, might have been possible by navigating northward and catching other prevailing winds and currents. This idea moves beyond random shipwreck. It suggests the potential for intentional, if perhaps rare, voyages. The implication is profound. It is not merely about a traded block of stone. Jade working is a supremely specialized craft, requiring specific knowledge to quarry, shape, and polish the incredibly hard material. The presence of Olmec jade in China hints at something far richer than a simple exchange of goods. It whispers of a possible exchange of ideas. Could Olmec artisans have shared techniques? Did the very concept of jade's spiritual significance travel with the stone? We are left with a silent, beautiful puzzle, two brilliant cultures separated by the planet's largest ocean, possibly connected by a shared reverence for the same green stone pulled from distant mountains. If such a link existed, even briefly, it forces us to redraw the mental map of ancient innovation, to see it not as isolated sparks in the dark, but as a potential network of shared light. And if jade could make such a journey, what other essential materials might have traveled these forgotten routes? From the green mountains of Mexico to the courts of ancient China, the story of jade reveals a world more connected than we knew. Yet the most startling evidence of this ancient globalism may lie on a windswept island in the East China Sea. At the ruins of Katsuran Castle on Okinawa, Japan, archaeologists made a discovery that seems to defy all logic. Mixed within the soil of a medieval fortress, built between the 12th and 15th centuries, they found coins minted by the Roman Empire. These small bronze pieces date from the 3rd and 4th centuries, a time when Rome was beginning its long transformation, and they had somehow traveled over 5,000 miles from their origin. The castle itself was constructed nearly 1,000 years after these coins were struck, making their journey through time as mysterious as their journey across space. How did currency from a crumbling European empire find its way to a remote Japanese island chain? The answer is a testament not to legions but to networks. It is highly unlikely a Roman legionary ever set foot on Okinawa. Instead, these coins are believed to have traveled the longest commercial route in the ancient world, the Silk Road. Imagine a single coin leaving a mint in Rome. It could have been paid to a merchant, then carried east into Persia. From there, it might have been traded into the complex economies of India, becoming not just currency but a curious trinket or a piece of decorative metal. It could have then moved through the bustling ports of Southeast Asia, finally catching a ride on a trading vessel sailing north into the waters of the Ryukyu Islands. At each stop, its value transformed from official Roman currency to an exotic item from a distant, barely understood world. This artifact does not signal a direct meeting between Rome and Japan, but something perhaps more profound. It demonstrates the incredible multi-stage reach of ancient trade, where an object could pass through dozens of cultures across centuries, slowly inching its way across the entire known world. A coin becomes a global traveler, its journey a silent map of human connection. If something as small as a bronze coin could make such an epic voyage, carried by the relentless engine of commerce, what other objects completed similar journeys, only to be lost before they could be recorded? This concept of incredible distance traveled finds its most dramatic proof not in the old world, but in the soils of the new. Buried within a sealed tomb near what is now Mexico City, a small face from another world stares back at us. This is the Tecaxic Calixtlahuaca head, a terracotta sculpture discovered in a burial that dates firmly to before the Spanish arrival in 1519. What makes this artifact so deeply unsettling to the conventional timeline is its style. It bears the unmistakable features of classical Roman portraiture, with a neatly trimmed beard and hairstyle that would have been at home in the Forum centuries before. The head was found in an undisturbed archaeological layer, making the possibility of a simple modern mix-up far less likely. The question it poses is direct and profound. How did a sculptural style from the ancient Mediterranean wind up interred in the heart of Mesoamerica? One compelling theory points to the unpredictable power of the sea. Roman trading vessels, known to venture out into the Atlantic for resources like tin from Britain, could have been caught in a powerful storm. The currents of the North Atlantic, if a ship was disabled, could theoretically carry a vessel across the ocean in a journey of desperation, eventually washing survivors onto the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. Such an event would have been a one-way trip, a tragic accident of navigation. Yet if even a few individuals from the Roman world survived such an ordeal, they would have brought with them not just their physical presence, but their memories, their artistic sensibilities, and their skills. A local artisan, fascinated by these strangers with their distinct appearance, might have then created this small head, capturing a face that was utterly foreign to the Americas. This transforms the artifact from a mere traded object into a potential snapshot of a human encounter, a fleeting moment of contact between two worlds that history forgot to record. Of course, skepticism remains strong. Some experts maintain it must be a colonial-era object that somehow contaminated the older site, though the sealed context argues against this. The head endures as a quiet, clay-fired challenge, inviting us to consider a history where people, and not just their goods, could occasionally cross the vast oceans. If artistic influence could travel, carried by the memory of a survivor, then we must also look for evidence written in the landscape itself, in the very bones of the earth that these ancient travelers might have sought. The idea of survivors carrying artistic memory across an ocean is compelling, but what if the evidence for contact is not carved in clay, but written in the very flesh of the ancients themselves? This brings us to one of the most hotly debated out-of-place artifact mysteries, one written not in stone or metal, but in biochemistry. In the 1970s, toxicologists performing analyses on the well-preserved remains of the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II made a startling discovery. Within the tissues of the mummy, they found traces of nicotine, a compound from the tobacco plant, and later studies on other mummies would report evidence of cocaine. The profound problem is that both tobacco and the coca plant, the source of cocaine, are botanically native to the Americas. They simply did not exist in the flora of Africa, Europe, or Asia during the time of the pharaohs, over 1,000 years before the Common Era. How could substances from a continent supposedly unknown for another 2 millennia end up inside the bodies of Egyptian royalty? The immediate and necessary scientific response has been rigorous skepticism. Critics point to the real possibility of modern contamination, perhaps from the handling of the mummies by archaeologists who smoked, or from the conservation materials used in earlier centuries. Others have searched for alternative Old World plants that might have produced similar chemical signatures, though no convincing candidates for cocaine have been found. Yet the findings reported by multiple researchers across different mummies from different tombs persist like a stubborn chemical ghost. If we entertain the possibility that the results are valid, the implications are staggering. We are no longer talking about durable goods like coins or statues that could survive a centuries-long journey through trade networks. This is about perishable organic material, leaves and plants that would wither and lose their potency within months if not carefully transported and preserved. The presence of these substances suggests a trade route sophisticated enough to move delicate botanical products across vast distances, potentially involving specialized knowledge to keep them viable. It hints at connections that were not just accidental or sporadic, but perhaps regular enough to establish a demand for these exotic compounds, possibly for medicinal or ritual use. This transforms the narrative from one of rare, shipwrecked travelers to one of purposeful exchange. It implies a network where knowledge of distant lands and their unique resources was actively sought and integrated into the practices of powerful, ancient cultures. The silent testimony locked within those mummified tissues challenges us to consider an ancient world where the oceans were not impassable barriers, but dynamic channels for the exchange of the very essence of life from one hemisphere to another. That chemical ghost within the pharaohs points to a trade in perishable wonders, but what about the exchange of something far more abstract, the exchange of ideas themselves? This brings us to an object that seems to hum with a different kind of power, a quiet technological secret from the sands of Iraq. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this unassuming artifact is a simple clay jar, roughly the size of a man's fist, dating from the Parthian period around 2,000 years ago. Inside, archaeologists found a carefully arranged assembly. A copper cylinder was sealed with asphalt, and within it sat an iron rod. The jar showed no signs of corrosion from a liquid, but if someone were to fill it with an acidic substance, something as common as vinegar or lemon juice, this simple device would do something extraordinary. It would produce a small but measurable electric charge. The immediate question is both thrilling and divisive. What on earth was it for? One compelling theory suggests it was a primitive galvanic cell, an ancient battery. For what purpose? Some researchers propose it could have been used for electroplating, the process of using electricity to coat one metal with a thin layer of another, like putting a layer of gold onto a silver object. This would explain ancient artifacts that seem to be gold-plated in ways that are difficult to achieve with fire-based methods alone. The idea is staggering. It implies a working understanding of electrochemical principles a full millennium and a half before scientists like Galvani and Volta began their foundational experiments in Europe. Yet, many mainstream scholars offer a more mundane explanation. They suggest the jar was simply a secure storage vessel for important religious or legal scrolls, with the iron rod acting as a core to roll the parchment around and the copper cylinder as a protective case. The asphalt seal would have kept out moisture and pests. This is a perfectly logical, practical use for the object's design. But here lies the core of the mystery. Its out-of-place nature is not about geography, but about time and knowledge. Even if it was just a storage jar, the fact that its construction accidentally creates a functional battery poses a haunting what-if. What if someone, perhaps while cleaning the jar with an acidic solution, noticed a strange tingling sensation? What if that accidental discovery was then explored, understood, and even applied? This artifact forces us to confront the possibility of parallel invention. the idea that advanced concepts can spark to life independently in separated cultures. If the Baghdad jar was indeed a purposeful battery, it suggests that the seed of electrical knowledge was present in the ancient world. And if such knowledge existed in one place, could it have traveled? Could the concept of using chemical reactions to generate power have been a piece of technical lore that moved along trade routes from master artisan to apprentice, eventually being lost to time? This shifts our perspective on ancient innovation. We often imagine technology as a linear march of progress, but history might be more like a scattered garden, where the same rare flower blooms in completely different beds, nurtured by different hands but following the same natural laws. The Baghdad Battery, whether a brilliant invention or a fascinating accident, is a testament to the latent potential of the ancient mind. It whispers that the builders of the past may have grasped fragments of science we thought were born in much later eras, and if they understood electricity, what other principles of the natural world did they quietly harness? The concept of a shared technological secret like the Baghdad jar leads us to a far grander and more visible pattern etched across the globe itself. Scattered across continents and separated by vast oceans, ancient builders repeatedly chose one specific, awe-inspiring form, the pyramid. From the sun-baked mud brick ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the limestone colossi of Giza, from the jungle-shrouded stepped pyramids of the Maya to the great earthen mounds of Cahokia in North America, this geometric shape rises again and again from the landscape. The standard explanation is one of convergent evolution, what scholars sometimes call psychic unity. This theory suggests that different human societies, facing similar needs for elevated ceremonial spaces or stable monumental tombs, independently arrived at the pyramid as the most logical and structurally sound solution. A wide base and a narrowing top is, after all, a brilliant way to build something tall and enduring. Yet, when you look closer, the parallels become almost unnerving. Many of these structures are precisely aligned with celestial events, like the solstices or specific stars. Their geometry often incorporates sophisticated mathematical ratios, and their core purpose consistently ties to the spiritual realm, serving as bridges between the earth and the heavens, or as resting places for the revered. This raises a tantalizing alternative. What if this was not just independent genius but a shared blueprint? Could the core idea of the pyramid, its sacred geometry and celestial purpose, have been a piece of intellectual cargo carried along the same ancient trade routes that moved jade and coins? Imagine a merchant priest, a traveler who was both a trader of goods and a keeper of lore. On a long journey, he might describe the great mountain of stone in his homeland, built to touch the sky and please the gods. He might sketch its shape in the sand, explaining how its sides capture the first light of the dawn on a sacred day. A local chieftain or architect, listening intently, might be inspired. The idea, not the exact blueprint, takes root. It merges with local beliefs, is built with local materials, and adapts to local astronomical knowledge, yet the fundamental form and intention remain recognizable. This would represent a trade not in spices or silk, but in ideas themselves, a diffusion of spiritual architecture that was perhaps the most valuable commodity of all. We see echoes of this in smaller, portable artifacts, like specific styles of glass beads found from the Mediterranean to Southeast Asia, their manufacture techniques hinting at a transferred craft. The global pyramid pattern suggests that ancient exchange networks dealt in more than objects. They dealt in the very blueprints for meaning, allowing humanity to build its aspirations toward the stars on a foundation of shared inspiration. The shared blueprint of the pyramid speaks to a trade in ideas, but for a network to function, it needed a practical system of identification and trust. Far from the monumental stones of Egypt, within the bustling, mud brick warehouses of ancient Mesopotamian cities like Ur, archaeologists have uncovered small, exquisite objects that served exactly this purpose. These are the Indus Valley seals, intricate stone stamps carved with images of mythical beasts and a script that remains undeciphered to this day. What makes them remarkable is their location. They were found thousands of miles from their origin in the sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, in what is now Pakistan and India. Dating to around 2,000 years before the Common Era, these seals are not mysterious in a ghostly sense. They are something far more valuable, a receipt. They represent concrete, undeniable proof of a long-distance relationship between two of the ancient world's greatest powers. Each seal was likely the unique signature of a merchant or a governing house. Imagine a bale of precious cotton cloth or a shipment of rare, fragrant timber being prepared for export in the port of Lothal, an Indus Valley city. An official would press the carved seal into a soft clay tag attached to the goods, leaving behind an impression of a unicorn-like animal and mysterious symbols. This tag acted as a certificate of origin, a guarantee of quality, and a bill of lading all in one. When that shipment arrived after a long ocean voyage up the Persian Gulf and into the heart of Mesopotamia, the recipient in would see that distinctive mark and know exactly where his luxury materials came from and who had sent them. This was not accidental trade or the result of a single storm-tossed voyage. It was a regular, established commercial route across the Indian Ocean. The seals confirm a direct and sophisticated maritime link, a highway for luxury goods that also became a conduit for something less tangible. Along with the cloth and the timber, ideas about urban planning, metallurgy, and perhaps even religious symbols may have sailed between these civilizations. The presence of these seals provides a critical model, a clear, documented example of how objects and influence could travel immense distances in the ancient world. If administrative stamps could reliably move between the Indus and Mesopotamia, then the journey of a Roman coin to Japan or Olmec jade to China moves from the realm of pure speculation into a pattern of human behavior we know existed. These small stones are the quiet bureaucrats of history, their imprints offering not a mystery to solve, but a foundational truth to build upon. The ancient world was connected by threads of commerce strong enough to bind continents. Deep in the high plains of Bolivia, resting near the shores of Lake Titicaca, a large stone bowl tells a story no one can quite agree upon. This is the Fuente Magna, a vessel of a size meant for communal use, possibly in a ceremonial context. Its surface is covered with intricate carvings, and it is these markings that have ignited a firestorm of controversy. To some researchers, the symbols etched into the stone bear a startling resemblance to two ancient Old World scripts, Proto-Sumerian from Mesopotamia and a Libyan script from North Africa. The implications of such a claim are, of course, monumental. It would mean that a system of writing, one of humanity's most profound and culture-specific inventions, had somehow crossed both the Atlantic Ocean and millennia of time to appear in the Andes. Mainstream archaeology, however, approaches the bowl with deep and understandable skepticism. Experts point out that the symbols could be the result of natural weathering over centuries, the random patterns of erosion mistaken for human design. The possibility of a modern forgery created to support unconventional historical theories is also a serious consideration. There is no clear archaeological context for its discovery, no surrounding layer of soil or associated artifacts to provide a firm date, which makes definitive judgment incredibly difficult. This artifact represents the outer edge of the out-of-place artifact debate. It forces us to confront a critical question: where does compelling, if controversial, evidence end, and where does wishful thinking begin? The idea that people could carry writing systems across oceans is not, in itself, impossible. If trade routes existed for goods and ideas, why not for the very symbols used to record them? A scribe or a priest, part of a far-flung voyage, might have inscribed sacred phrases onto a local object, leaving behind a ghost of a language that would never take root. Yet, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the Fuente Magna, shrouded in provenance questions, remains a profound puzzle rather than a clear key. It challenges us to hold two competing truths in mind at once: the thrilling possibility of a radically connected ancient world and the rigorous discipline required to prove it. This tension between an open mind and a critical eye is precisely what we must bring to our next category of evidence, one that moves from inscribed stone to the very transformation of metal itself. The mystery of the Fuente Magna asks us to weigh possibility against proof, but some artifacts present a challenge that is both physical and chemical. Deep in the ancient workshops of what is now Ecuador and Colombia, artisans of cultures like La Tolita performed what seemed like a modern miracle. They crafted exquisite jewelry and ornaments from gold, but when modern scientists examined these pieces with microscopes, they found something astonishing locked within the metal: tiny, deliberate inclusions of platinum. This discovery is a profound technological puzzle. Platinum is not like gold or silver. It has an astronomically high melting point, over 1,700 degrees Celsius. In a world before industrial furnaces, working such a stubborn metal into a solid object was considered impossible. Yet, these pre-Columbian metallurgists had not only worked it, they had mastered it. They developed a sophisticated method known as powder metallurgy. They would take naturally occurring grains of platinum, likely found mixed with gold in certain river sands, and painstakingly combine them with fine gold dust. Through a meticulous process of heating and hammering at temperatures high enough to soften the gold but not melt the platinum, they essentially sintered the metals together. The gold acted as a glue, binding the platinum particles into a solid, durable, and beautifully lustrous alloy. This was not a happy accident, it was a deliberate, advanced material science. The out-of-place aspect here is not geography, but knowledge. This represents a pinnacle of technological achievement that, according to conventional history, should not have existed in that time and place. It forces a deeper question: was this brilliant innovation born in complete isolation, a unique spark of genius on the Pacific coast of South America? Or could the seed of this idea have traveled? The exchange of a finished platinum-gold ornament is one thing, but the exchange of the complex, step-by-step knowledge required to create it is something else entirely. It hints at the potential for trade networks to carry not just exotic goods, but the very instructions for making them. Imagine a master smith from another culture, perhaps one skilled in working other refractory metals, sharing concepts of heat and powder binding during a long trading voyage. This does not diminish the achievement of the La Tolita people, rather, it places them within a potential global conversation of innovation. Their technique demonstrates that the most valuable cargo on ancient routes may have been intangible, the shared secrets of transforming the Earth's treasures, secrets that could cross oceans as easily as a story and change a culture's relationship with metal forever. The mastery of platinum speaks to a shared language of innovation, but what if the evidence for connection is woven into the very fabric of ancient life itself? This brings us to a discovery not made in a tomb or a temple, but within the genetic code of a humble plant. For decades, botanists have been fascinated by the story of cotton, specifically the dominant species domesticated in the Americas, Gossypium hirsutum. When scientists finally mapped its genome, they uncovered a biological bombshell. This American cotton carries within its DNA clear, unmistakable sequences from an African cotton species. The scientific explanation is clear. At some point in the distant past, an American cotton plant hybridized with an African one. This was not a chance event of wind-blown seeds across an ocean. It required human intervention. Someone had to physically bring viable African cotton plants, or their seeds, across the Atlantic and introduce them to the New World environment, where they could cross-pollinate with native varieties. This genetic signature is a timestamp frozen in the biology of the plant itself, and it dates this transatlantic transfer to a period long before the voyages of Columbus. This transforms our understanding of ancient contact. A coin can be lost or traded through countless hands over centuries. A jade artifact, while precious, is a finished object. But cotton is different. This is evidence of the transfer of a living organism, a deliberate act of agricultural exchange. It suggests that the contact between Africa and the Americas was substantial enough, and perhaps sustained enough, for people to think about more than just trading trinkets. They were trading the future. They were sharing the very raw materials of civilization, plants that could be cultivated, harvested, and woven into the economic and social fabric of a society. Imagine an ancient mariner, perhaps from one of the West African seafaring cultures, packing a small pouch of precious cotton seeds alongside provisions for a long, uncertain voyage. Upon making landfall in the Americas, that seed would have been a gift of immense practical value, offered in trade or friendship. Its successful hybridization with local plants created a new, hardier variety that would go on to clothe empires. This biological thread weaves a far more intimate connection than any artifact. It points to a meeting of minds and purposes, where knowledge of cultivation, weaving, and dyeing might have flowed in both directions along a transatlantic current we are only beginning to map. If the very plants beneath our feet carry memories of these journeys, what other silent witnesses might be waiting in the earth or even in the ocean itself? The silent testimony of cotton genetics is echoed by a far more visible and tastier piece of evidence. Consider the humble sweet potato. This nutritious root vegetable is botanically native to the western coast of South America, where it was cultivated for thousands of years. Yet, when European explorers like Captain Cook first reached the remote islands of Polynesia in the 18th century, they found the sweet potato already thriving in local gardens. It was a staple food, fully integrated into the agricultural and cultural life of communities scattered across the vast Pacific. The mystery of its presence is compounded by its name. In many Polynesian languages, the word for sweet potato is kuamala, a term that bears a striking, resonant similarity to the Quechuan word from the Andes, kumara. This is not a vague coincidence of sound. It is a specific linguistic fingerprint. The transfer of a living, reproducing plant is a very different kind of evidence than a durable artifact. A ceramic pot or a metal coin could theoretically survive a long drift voyage in a disabled vessel carried by currents alone, but a sweet potato is a perishable tuber. To establish itself across a chain of islands spanning thousands of miles of open ocean, it required deliberate human action. Someone had to carefully transport viable cuttings or roots, protecting them from saltwater and rot during a long sea journey, and then someone else had to plant and cultivate them upon arrival. This points decisively toward intentional contact, a meeting between Polynesian voyagers and the peoples of South America. The implications are profound. This was likely not a single, accidental encounter, but part of a pattern of sustained, two-way interaction. Polynesian sailors, the greatest navigators of the ancient world, mastering the Pacific using only the stars, waves, and winds, may have reached the Americas. They would have encountered a new world of resources, and among the most valuable gifts they could have received or traded for was this hardy, calorie-rich crop. In return, they might have offered something equally precious from their own voyages. This exchange transformed societies. The sweet potato provided a reliable food source that could support growing populations on islands with limited natural resources, altering the very demographic and cultural landscape of Polynesia. This story moves us beyond the trade of luxuries for elites like jade or silk. Here we see the practical, subsistence-level engine of ancient globalization. Networks were driven not just by a desire for the rare and the beautiful, but by the fundamental human needs of survival and prosperity. The journey of the sweet potato proves that these oceanic highways carried the very stuff of life itself, seeds and tubers that could reshape continents and diets, one successful harvest at a time. High in the Arctic, where the wind sculpts the ice into endless white dunes, a small circle of polished bronze once caught the light. This artifact, a Chinese mirror from the glorious Tang Dynasty, was not found in a palace or a tomb, but carefully preserved within a prehistoric Inuit settlement in Alaska. Dating from around the 6th to the 9th centuries, this object is a whisper from a world away, a refined item of personal adornment and spiritual significance from one of history's most sophisticated empires, resting in the hands of a masterful hunter-gatherer culture. Its journey to that frozen shore is a map of possibilities. One captivating theory points directly to the legendary voyages of the Chinese Dragon Fleet, those great treasure ships that, according to some accounts, sailed under Admiral Zheng He in the early 15th century and may have had predecessors exploring the Pacific centuries earlier. Could a storm have driven a Chinese vessel far off its known course, pushing it through the Aleutian Islands until its survivors, or at least their cargo, made contact with the peoples of the far north? It is a story written in the style of an epic, a single mirror as a potential token from a lost expedition. Yet there exists another, perhaps more layered explanation, one that relies not on a single dramatic shipwreck, but on the slow, patient pulse of continental trade. This mirror may have traveled the long way around, moving not across the open Pacific, but overland and along coasts. It could have begun its life in a Tang workshop, then been traded north into Siberia, passed from hand to hand through networks of nomadic peoples. From there, it might have crossed the Bering Strait, that ancient and ever-shifting bridge between continents, entering the vast exchange circuits of the Inuit and their neighbors. This route transforms the mirror from a potential shipwreck relic into a node in a circumpolar web, a testament to the incredible reach of indirect trade. Its value would have transformed with every exchange. In Chang'an, the Tang capital, it was a beautiful object of daily life, perhaps used for grooming or as a symbolic grave good. By the time it reached an Alaskan hunter, its meaning had likely evolved. It might have been prized for its flawless, reflective surface, a rarity in the Arctic, becoming a powerful shamanic tool for spiritual practice or a high-status item denoting connection to a distant, powerful world. This single artifact illustrates a profound truth about ancient globalization. Influence did not always travel in a straight line from empire to empire. Sometimes it filtered slowly downward and outward, from urban centers to nomadic tribes, from agricultural civilizations to hunter-gatherer societies, creating ripples of curiosity and prestige that spanned the entire roof of the world. The mirror does not tell us definitively if Chinese ships reached Alaska, but it does tell us without doubt that Chinese craftsmanship did. It proves that no society, no matter how remote, was truly isolated. The desires and artistry of the Tang Dynasty could, through the relentless engine of human connection, eventually shine back at a person standing on an Alaskan shore, connecting two faces across time, space, and utterly different ways of life in a single, silent glance. That single glance across the Arctic, reflected in a Tang mirror, connects worlds we thought were separate. But what happens when the evidence for connection is not a beautiful object, but a simple, inscribed stone that seems to speak in a language from another continent? In 1889, a team excavating a Native American burial mound in Bat Creek, Tennessee, uncovered a small, flat stone. Etched upon its surface was a row of curious markings. For decades, it was catalogued as just another enigmatic relic, perhaps containing forgotten Cherokee symbols. Then, in the 1970s, a researcher made a startling claim. The inscription, he argued, was not Native American at all. He proposed it was written in a script called Paleo-Hebrew, used in the ancient Levant around 2,000 years ago, and that it could be translated as a dedication for Judah. The implications were, and remain, explosive. If authentic, the Bat Creek stone would suggest direct contact between Semitic peoples from the Mediterranean and the mound-building cultures of North America centuries, if not millennia before Columbus. The stone itself was found in a carefully documented archaeological context, within a burial that also contained preserved wooden ear spools, allowing for carbon dating that placed the site between the 1st and 8th centuries. This seemed to rule out a modern prank from the 1880s. The controversy, however, is a perfect case study in the intense scrutiny these artifacts demand. Mainstream archaeology overwhelmingly rejects the Hebrew interpretation. Critics point out that the inscription is short and ambiguous, open to multiple readings. They suggest the marks could be a combination of natural weathering and coincidental scratches that only appear letter-like to an eager eye. The possibility remains that it could be a poorly understood indigenous symbol system, or even a modern forgery created by someone involved in the excavation itself, perhaps inspired by popular 19th century theories about lost tribes of Israel in the Americas. This stone sits squarely on the razor's edge of the out-of-place artifact debate. It is not like the chemically verified platinum gold alloys or the genetically mapped cotton, where the evidence is empirical and repeatable. Its meaning is entirely dependent on interpretation, on a subjective translation of a few worn lines. Like the Fuente Magna bowl from South America, it represents the most contentious category of evidence, where the desire for a revolutionary narrative can sometimes outpace the solid footing of proof. Yet its persistence in discussions is itself instructive. It forces us to apply the most rigorous scrutiny to separate the seductive story from the verifiable fact. This disciplined skepticism is not a dismissal of mystery but a necessary tool. It is the filter that ensures when we do find something truly inexplicable, we can trust the ground we are standing on. This careful process of validation is what allows us to turn next to an object whose mystery lies not in disputed writing, but in undeniable, precise, and baffling mechanical function. The rigorous skepticism demanded by artifacts like the Bat Creek stone is a necessary discipline, for it allows us to recognize true technological wonder when we see it. And perhaps no single discovery embodies that wonder more completely than a corroded lump of bronze and wood pulled from the seafloor. In the year 1900, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon the wreck of a Roman cargo ship from the 1st century before the Common Era. Among the statues and ceramics, they recovered a nondescript, heavily encrusted object about the size of a large book. Decades later, as conservators painstakingly cleaned it, they realized it was not a sculpture but a machine. Gears emerged, tiny, precise bronze gears arranged in a complex assembly. Inscriptions on its casing described astronomical cycles. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, and it has been called the world's first known analog computer. Scientific analysis using advanced imaging has revealed it to be an intricate, hand-powered device designed to predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, to forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even to track the cycles of athletic games like the Olympics. Its construction dates to around the 2nd century before the Common Era, a time when we believed the height of Greek technology was the water screw or the catapult. This device operates on a completely different level of intellect. It contains differential gearing, a technical achievement not thought to have been invented until the 16th century, over 1,700 years later. Its very existence shatters our timeline of engineering progress. Here is a machine of breathtaking sophistication, born in a world we assumed was devoid of such intricate mechanical thought. While the Antikythera mechanism itself was found in a Mediterranean shipwreck and is not direct proof of global trade, its implications ripple outward like a stone dropped into the sea of history. It is a definitive data point proving that a culture in the ancient world, in this case the Greeks, possessed knowledge and craftsmanship far beyond our previous assumptions. This forces a profound and unsettling question. If this level of advanced technology existed in one corner of the ancient world, could its principles have traveled? Could the conceptual blueprint for such a device, or even simpler versions of it, have been among the most prized intellectual cargo on those long-distance trade networks? We know ideas like pyramid building and metallurgical techniques may have diffused. Why not the principles of precision gearing and astronomical calculation? Imagine a scholar or artisan from Alexandria, a center of learning where such a device might have been built, accompanying a trading voyage to India or beyond. In the court of a distant king, he might demonstrate a portable version of this celestial predictor, a dazzling display of knowledge that seemed like magic. The device itself might not survive the centuries, but the idea of it, the memory of a machine that could model the heavens, could ignite a spark of inquiry in a foreign land. The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a monument to lost potential. It tells us that the ancient world was capable of technological leaps we never credited it with. And if such a leap happened once in one place, the interconnected nature of that world suggests the spark could have jumped. We are left to wonder what other fragments of high tech, other gears of understanding, might lie buried in the wrong places, waiting to tell us that the past was not a simpler time, but a different one, with its own secrets still turning silently in the dark. The intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism reveal a mind capable of modeling the cosmos. But what happens when that same human imagination turns its gaze not to the stars, but to the spirit world? On the weathered sandstone walls of the Kimberley region in northwestern Australia, ancient artists painted the Wandjina. These powerful cloud and rain spirits are depicted with radiant halos or headdresses, enormous, dark eyes that seem to hold a timeless knowledge, and a most distinctive feature, they are almost always shown without mouth. For the Aboriginal peoples of that land, these are not mere pictures. They are sacred beings, the creators of the land and the bringers of the monsoon rains, their very image a form of ongoing spiritual connection. Yet, for an outside observer, the visual style sparks a startling sense of recognition. Half a world away, in the tombs and temples of ancient Egypt, gods like Osiris, the ruler of the afterlife, are often shown with a similar radiant crown or halo, known as an aureole. Other deities, like the protective household god Bes, are depicted with exaggerated large eyes. The stylistic echoes, particularly the shared emphasis on luminous headgear and oversized penetrating eyes, are undeniably striking. The vast Indian Ocean lies between these two sites, a formidable barrier of water and time. The immediate and most scientifically supported explanation is one of profound coincidence, a magnificent example of what scholars call convergent symbolic development. This is the idea that human societies, grappling with the same fundamental mysteries of existence, the sky, the weather, the divine, can independently arrive at similar visual metaphors. A halo or radiant crown is a nearly universal symbol for power, sanctity, or a connection to the celestial realm. Large eyes can represent omnipresent vision, wisdom, or a supernatural ability to see beyond the mundane world. The absence of a mouth on the Wandjina is deeply specific to their lore. They are so powerful their words become law, making a mouth unnecessary. In Egypt, other symbolic rules applied. This parallel is a crucial reminder in our search for ancient connections. Not every similarity is a secret thread in a global tapestry. The human mind, in its beautiful, recurring patterns, is perfectly capable of painting the same idea on opposite sides of the planet without a single shared word. However, this acknowledgement makes the next category of evidence all the more compelling. When we find these stylistic echoes not in isolation, but paired with physical, tradable objects that share the same cultural fingerprint, the coincidence becomes harder to accept. It is one thing for two cultures to independently paint a figure with a halo. It is another to find that specific halo style carved onto an artifact that itself traveled thousands of miles. This is where the search moves from intriguing pattern to tangible puzzle, asking us to distinguish between the shared poetry of the human spirit and the physical receipts of a forgotten exchange. The possibility of deep, persistent contact moves us from the open Pacific to the dense river systems of another continent. Far from the coastal safety of Eland's Orcs meadows, whispers have long persisted of another kind of Norse artifact found in North America. Scattered and controversial reports have emerged over the years describing iron spearheads and tools discovered around the Great Lakes, objects said to bear the metallurgical and stylistic hallmarks of Viking craftsmanship. Unlike the Maine penny found in a documented layer, many of these objects surfaced in the 19th or early 20th centuries, often through amateur collectors, leaving their original archaeological context a mystery. This lack of a clear scientific provenance makes them the subject of intense debate, hovering in a frustrating space between tantalizing clue and unverifiable rumor. Yet, the very persistence of these reports demands a thoughtful look. If even one such artifact could be authenticated, its location would rewrite the map of Norse activity in the New World. The Great Lakes are a staggering distance inland, accessible via a network of rivers and portages from the Atlantic coast. A Norse iron spearhead on the shores of Lake Superior would imply a journey of exploration, or perhaps trade, that ventured hundreds of miles beyond their known coastal camps. It suggests a purposeful push into the interior, not just a temporary shelter on the ocean's edge. This opens a narrative far more dynamic than a single, failed settlement. Imagine small bands of Norse travelers, perhaps over several generations, learning from indigenous guides how to navigate the river highways of the continent. Their goal may not have been permanent conquest but sustainable exchange. They possessed a technology highly prized by the woodlands nations, durable wrought iron for tools and weapons. In return, they would have sought the incredible wealth of the North American interior, prime furs like beaver and fox, and perhaps vast stores of high-quality timber for their shipbuilding back in Greenland or Iceland. This model is not one of colonization, but of itinerant trade, a seasonal or occasional interaction that left only the faintest of material traces, an iron point lost in a riverbed, a broken tool discarded at a campsite. It challenges the simplistic story of Vikings as mere raiders who came and quickly left. Instead, it paints a picture of adaptation and tentative connection, of foreigners slowly integrating into existing trade networks that stretched deep into the heart of the continent. While mainstream archaeology rightly awaits a verified discovery from a controlled dig, these persistent whispers from the Great Lakes serve an important purpose. They remind us that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially for a pattern of contact that was likely small in scale, sporadic, and left behind objects easily reclaimed by the earth or repurposed by others. The true story of Norse presence in the Americas may be written not in the stones of a single foundation, but in the scattered, rusted iron that still waits, half forgotten, in museum drawers and old collection catalogues, a ghost of a journey much longer than our histories have dared to record. The persistent whispers of Norse iron point us toward a truth often buried by time, that the most fleeting contacts leave the faintest traces. This brings us to an artifact category that represents the opposite extreme, objects so bold in their claims they demand not just scrutiny, but a lesson in discernment. In a private collection in Peru, there exists a set of carved stones known as the Ica Stones. They are covered in intricate engravings that seem to depict a world turned upside down. On their surfaces, human figures ride upon the backs of creatures that bear a striking resemblance to dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosaurus. Other stones show what look like advanced surgical procedures, including heart transplants and cesarean sections, and even maps of lost continents. If authentic, these stones would be the most revolutionary out-of-place artifacts ever discovered, rewriting not just history but biology and medicine. The story told by their discoverer was that they were found in ancient tombs, a secret history of a forgotten civilization that coexisted with giants from a prehistoric age. The allure of such a narrative is powerful, a hidden chapter where humanity possessed knowledge far beyond our own. Yet, this is where our journey must pause for a crucial reality check. The vast majority of archaeologists, geologists, and historians classify the Ica stones as a modern hoax, likely created in the mid-20th century. The evidence against them is substantial. The stones themselves show no signs of the natural patina or weathering one would expect from objects buried for centuries. The engraving lines are sharp and fresh, lacking the micro-erosion patterns of age. Furthermore, the artistic style of the dinosaurs is suspiciously similar to illustrations found in popular dinosaur books of the 1960s. Most damning of all is the complete lack of provenance. No credible archaeologist ever witnessed their excavation from a sealed, datable layer. Their discoverer later admitted to carving some of them himself, though he claimed he was copying from a larger, genuine cache. The Ica stones are included here not as evidence of ancient contact, but as a vital cautionary tale within the world of out-of-place artifacts. They represent the powerful human desire to find confirmation for our most wondrous and radical theories about the past. This desire can sometimes outpace our commitment to rigorous proof. They serve as a stark reminder that the first question we must ask of any mysterious object is not what does it mean, but where did it come from, and can that story be verified? Distinguishing between a genuine historical puzzle and a clever forgery is the essential foundation of any serious discussion about ancient global networks. It is the necessary filter that clears away the distracting noise, allowing us to focus our attention on the quieter, more substantial signals from the past, the ones backed by chemistry, context, and repeatable science. This process of rigorous validation does not diminish the mystery. It refines it, ensuring that the connections we ultimately trace are drawn not in the sand of speculation, but in the bedrock of evidence. And it is on that solid bedrock that we find our final, and perhaps most elegant, piece of the puzzle. The rigorous validation demanded by artifacts like the Ica stones clears the air, allowing a far more subtle and intriguing mystery to come into focus. In the quiet countryside of Tuscany, Italy, a different kind of legendary sword rests not in a stone but within one. At the ruined abbey of San Galgano, a simple Romanesque chapel houses a most peculiar relic. Embedded vertically in the bedrock floor is the sword of the 12th century knight, Saint Galgano. According to tradition, he thrust his weapon into the stone as a sign of renouncing violence, and it has remained there, a tangible symbol of faith for centuries. While the sword itself is a documented medieval artifact, its story takes an unexpected turn in the realm of material analysis. Some independent researchers, examining the sword's metal composition, have put forward claims that its metallurgy shows unusual signatures, elements or forging techniques that seem atypical for the swordsmiths of medieval Europe. From this technical observation, more speculative theories have bloomed, suggesting that the sword's decorative motifs or overall form might bear a faint, almost ghostly resemblance to artistic styles found in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. It is crucial to state that this proposed transatlantic link is viewed as extremely tenuous by mainstream historians and archaeologists, lacking the robust evidence required for scholarly acceptance. The swords of San Galgano are, in all likelihood, exactly what they appear to be, powerful local relics of a profound spiritual transformation. Yet, the very existence of these fringe theories about the sword is itself a fascinating artifact of the modern mind. It illustrates how a single, powerful object can become a nexus, a focal point where our deep human desire to find hidden connections across time and space converges. When we encounter something that feels ancient and mysterious, there is an instinct to weave it into a larger, global tapestry, to see the hand of a lost traveler or a shared archetype in its form. This desire is not a flaw, it is the engine of curiosity that drives exploration and inquiry. The story of the sword reminds us, however, that this powerful instinct must be tempered by disciplined, empirical evidence. We must hold two truths in balance: the thrilling possibility of a radically interconnected past and the patient, meticulous work required to prove it. This balance is the final and most important tool we bring to our investigation, as we step back to look at the grand pattern these 20 scattered pieces have drawn across the map of history. 20 scattered pieces now lie before us, a mosaic of metal, stone, and seed. Individually, each artifact is a riddle, but step back and look at them as a whole, and a breathtaking pattern begins to emerge. This is not the blueprint for a single, unified global economy run by a central power. There were no ancient equivalents of multinational corporations or standardized shipping containers. Instead, the picture that comes into focus is far more organic, more human. It is a vast, sprawling patchwork of overlapping, intermittent, and often incredibly indirect networks. A Roman coin reaches Japan not because a Roman merchant sailed there, but because it passed through a dozen different hands across a dozen different cultures over centuries. Olmec jade appears in China, perhaps carried on a vessel that caught a Pacific current its crew did not fully intend to ride. A sweet potato's name echoes across an ocean, carried by Polynesian navigators who traded for it on a distant shore. These were not scheduled routes, but rivers of opportunity, flowing whenever knowledge, daring, and favorable winds aligned. Some of these connections are etched in the undeniable ink of archaeology. The Indus Valley seals in Mesopotamian warehouses are a receipt, a signed and dated document proving a direct, sustained maritime trade. We can hold that evidence. Other links, like the possibility of trans-Pacific voyages that brought coca leaves to Egypt or artistic styles to the Americas, remain in the realm of vigorous, fascinating debate. That debate itself is a sign of a maturing understanding. We are no longer asking if the ancient world was connected. We are now meticulously mapping how and how often. The profound implication of this collective evidence is a quiet revolution in perspective. For generations, the standard narrative presented ancient civilizations as isolated islands of achievement, brilliant but separate, like stars shining alone in the night sky. What these artifacts suggest is that they were never truly isolated. They were nodes in a vast, slow-moving web, a web where a spice from the Moluccas could eventually flavor a meal in Rome, where a mathematical concept from Babylon might influence astronomy in India, where a story about a pyramid told by a traveler around a campfire could inspire a king on another continent to build his own staircase to the gods. This changes everything about how we view human ingenuity and exploration. Innovation was rarely a solitary flash of genius in a vacuum. More often, it was a collaborative process stretched across continents and centuries. A technology like platinum metallurgy in South America might have been a local masterpiece, but the spark for it could have been fanned by a tale of working stubborn metals, shared by a seafaring trader from another shore. The movement was not just of things, but of the ideas embedded within them. A coin carries the concept of standardized value and political authority. A sacred stone brings with it beliefs about the spirit world and the afterlife. A new crop introduces not just calories, but entire new agricultural calendars and social structures. This ancient web was the internet of its day, transmitting the data packets of culture, technology, and belief at the speed of a sailing ship or a caravan's pace. It was slow, it was unreliable, and it was vulnerable to storms, wars, and shifting sands, but it was persistent. And its legacy is not found in the ruins of a single port city, but in the very fabric of our world today, in the plants we eat, the stories we tell, and the boundless curiosity that still drives us to look at a map and wonder what lies beyond the edge and who we might have met there long, long ago. From the Norse penny in Maine to the traces of distant plants within Egyptian mummies, these 20 scattered pieces form a single, resonant invitation. They ask us to reimagine history not as a series of isolated events, but as a vast and intricate tapestry woven with threads of unexpected connection. The old story of ancient civilizations as lonely islands of genius begins to fray at the edges, replaced by a vision of a world humming with daring voyages, chance encounters, and the simple, relentless human drive to reach beyond the horizon and exchange what was found there. This is not to say every mystery presented here carries equal weight, or that skepticism should be abandoned. Each artifact demands our most careful scrutiny, and some puzzles may never be fully solved to everyone's satisfaction. Yet, when viewed together, their collective presence is profoundly compelling. They argue that our past was far more dynamic, far more curious, and far more interconnected than our textbooks have long suggested. History, these objects whisper, is not a closed book written in stone. It is an ongoing investigation, a conversation between the present and the past where new evidence can still rewrite entire chapters. So what does this mean for us, the inheritors of this story? It means we must look at the world with a renewed sense of wonder. Every field that might hide a coin, every museum drawer holding an unclassified relic, every strand of genetic memory in a cultivated plant becomes a potential doorway. What other connections lie buried, waiting for a careful hand or a curious mind to uncover them? The search itself becomes part of the legacy, a continuation of that ancient human urge to explore and understand. If this journey through forgotten networks has sparked your curiosity, there are countless more historical puzzles waiting to be unraveled. For deeper dives into the mysteries of our shared past, consider subscribing to join the ongoing investigation. And we would love to hear your perspective. Which of these artifacts did you find the most convincing piece of evidence for a more connected ancient world? Share your thoughts in the comments below.